Gary Player, 1978, the 42-year-old who refused to quit. You're 42 years old, competing against guys in their 20s and 30s, and you're losing by 7 points going into the final day. In any sport, you'd be done, right? Well, Gary Player didn't get the memo. April 1978, Augusta, Georgia. The Masters Tournament. Think of it as the Super Bowl of golf. Player, nicknamed the Black Knight because he always wore black, was so far behind that most people had already left to beat traffic. Then something incredible happened. Player started the final day like a man possessed. While everyone else was choking under pressure, he was sinking impossible shots left and right. Here's the crazy part. He needed to wait 40 minutes after finishing to see if he'd actually won. Imagine sitting in a room, not knowing if you just pulled off one of the greatest comebacks in sports history. The leader, Hubert Green, just needed to not completely fall apart. Green fell apart. At 42, Player became the oldest champion in the tournament's history. But here's what makes this story even better. It gets crazier from here because our next comeback involves a man who literally almost died. Ben Hogan, 1950, the man who came back from the dead, almost died February 2nd, 1949. Ben Hogan is driving through Texas fog when his car collides head-on with a Greyhound bus. The doctors weren't sure he'd ever walk again, let alone play professional sports. 16 months later, Hogan shows up to the US Open, golf's most brutal tournament. His legs are wrapped in bandages, he can barely walk, and after 2 days, he's losing by 9 shots. Most people would have gone home. Hogan shot the round of his life on the final day, but it gets better. The comeback forced a playoff. An extra day of competition. Picture this, a man who almost died, legs screaming in pain, having to play 18 more holes against 2 healthy competitors. He destroyed them. Hogan won by 4 shots, and the photograph of his final approach shot became one of the most famous sports images ever taken. This wasn't just a comeback. This was a resurrection. Speaking of resurrections, wait until you hear about the guy who made the most arrogant prediction in sports history and then actually backed it up. Arnold Palmer, 1960, the most arrogant prediction ever, June 1960, Denver. Arnold Palmer is losing by 7 shots going into the final day. The leaders? A legend named Ben Hogan and a 20-year-old college kid named Jack Nicklaus, who would later become the greatest of all time. Palmer walks into the press room and makes one of the most arrogant statements in sports history. I'm going to hit my first shot 346 yards and land it next to the hole. Everyone laughed. That's like a basketball player saying he's going to make a shot from half court to start the game. Palmer steps up to the first shot of the day and absolutely crushes the ball. It lands 20 feet from the hole. The crowd goes insane. What happened next was pure magic. Palmer didn't just make up the 7-shot deficit, he won by 2 shots. He scored 6 points in the first 7 attempts, which in golf is like scoring 6 touchdowns in the first quarter. This victory made Palmer a superstar and created what became known as Arnie's Army. Millions of fans who followed him everywhere. But if you think that's impressive, wait until you hear about the collapse that made grown men cry. Billy Casper, 1966. The greatest collapse you've never heard of. San Francisco, 1966. Arnold Palmer has a 7-shot lead with 9 holes left to play. In golf, that's like being up by 21 points in the 4th quarter. The tournament is over, right? Billy Casper had other plans. While Palmer was thinking about setting records, Casper was thinking about winning. What happened next defies belief. Casper started scoring on every hole while Palmer completely fell apart. By the end of the day, Palmer's 7-shot lead had become a tie. Imagine blowing a 21-point lead in 15 minutes. That's what Palmer did. The next day, they had a playoff. Palmer jumped out to another lead, looking like he'd learned his lesson. Nope. Casper came back again and won by 3 shots. It's still considered one of the greatest collapses in sports history, but speaking of collapses, our next story involves a man who watched his opponent have a complete mental breakdown on live television. If you liked this video so far, please subscribe and help us reach the 10,000 mark by the end of this month. Let's continue. Nick Faldo, 1996. The Iceman Comet. April 1996. Augusta. Greg Norman has led this tournament for 3 straight days. He's up by 6 shots going into the final day. This should be a coronation. Instead, it became a public execution. Nick Faldo, known as the Iceman for his emotionless demeanor, played perfect golf while Norman had one of the worst meltdowns in sports history. Norman didn't just lose his lead, he lost it spectacularly. Every shot Norman hit seemed to find water or sand. Meanwhile, Faldo was like a robot, making no mistakes. showing no emotion, just methodically destroying his opponent's dreams. When it was over, Norman's 6-shot lead had become a 5-shot loss. Faldo won by 11 shots total. That's like winning a basketball game by 50 points after being down by 20. The image of Faldo putting his arm around the devastated Norman after the final shot is one of sport's most iconic moments of sportsmanship. But if you think that's dramatic, wait until you hear about the hometown hero who pulled off the impossible. Paul Lawrie, 1999. The 10-shot miracle. Scotland, 1999. Paul Lawrie is a local guy ranked 159th in the world. Basically a nobody. He's 10 shots behind going into the final day of his home country's biggest tournament. Nobody comes back from 10 shots down. Nobody. While Lawrie was quietly playing the round of his life, the leader, Jean Van de Velde, was having the most famous meltdown in sports history. Picture this. Van de Velde needed to just not completely mess up the final hole to win. He messed up spectacularly. Van de Velde hit his ball into a creek, took off his shoes and socks, rolled up his pants, and actually considered hitting the ball out of the water on live television. Millions of people watched a man lose his mind in real time. The collapse forced a playoff, and Lawrie seized his moment. The hometown crowd went absolutely insane as their local hero completed the impossible, a 10-shot comeback to win his country's biggest tournament. But even that pales in comparison to our next story, which involves the greatest athlete of his generation playing on a broken leg. Tiger Woods 2019, The Resurrection. April 2019, 2 years earlier, Tiger Woods was done. Mugshots on every newspaper, back surgeries that left him barely able to walk, personal scandals that destroyed his reputation. His career was over. Then he showed up to the Masters. For 4 days, Woods played like it was 2005 again. But this wasn't just about golf. This was about redemption. Every shot carried the weight of his comeback story. The final day was pure theater. The leader started falling apart while Woods methodically climbed the leaderboard. When Woods made his move, the crowd noise was deafening. The moment his final shot dropped, Woods collapsed in celebration. His kids ran onto the course and hugged him. Grown men were crying in the stands. This wasn't just a sports comeback, this was a human comeback. Woods had gone from rock bottom to the top of the world again. But believe it or not, this isn't even the most impressive Tiger Woods comeback. Jack Nicklaus, 1986. Father Time gets destroyed. April 1986. Jack Nicklaus is 46 years old. Ancient in professional sports. He's 4 shots behind going into the final day, and everyone has written him off. The young stars are supposed to take over. Nicklaus had other plans. What happened next was like watching Michael Jordan in his prime, except Jordan was 46 years old and playing against guys in their 20s. Nicklaus started making impossible shots, and the crowd began following him in massive numbers. The final 9 holes were pure magic. Shot after shot, the crowd got louder and louder. By the time Nicklaus reached the final hole, the entire place was on its feet, witnessing history. At 46, he became the oldest champion in tournament history, proving that greatness has no expiration date. But even this incredible story pales in comparison to what's coming next. Tom Watson, 1977. The greatest duel ever. Scotland, 1977. Tom Watson is 4 shots behind Jack Nicklaus, the greatest player who ever lived, going into the final day. They're paired together, meaning they have to play side by side. What followed was the greatest head-to-head battle in sports history. For 18 holes, these two legends matched each other shot for shot. Every time one made an incredible play, the other answered. The crowd was going insane watching 2 masters at the peak of their powers. The final hole decided everything. Watson needed to make one last incredible shot to win. He stepped up and delivered, landing his ball 18 inches from the hole. When the shot dropped, Watson raised his club in triumph. He'd just beaten the greatest player ever in the greatest duel ever played. But even this incredible story isn't number one, because our final comeback involves something that might be impossible to ever repeat. Tiger Woods 2008, playing on a broken leg. June 2008, San Diego. Tiger Woods has 2 broken bones in his leg and a torn knee ligament. He can barely walk, let alone compete in the most physically demanding tournament in the world. He played anyway. For 4 days, Woods battled not just the other competitors, but his own body. Every step was agony. Every swing sent shooting pain through his leg. Doctors later said he was risking permanent damage. The tournament went to a playoff. Sudden death, winner takes all. Woods and his opponent were tied after the extra round, so they had to keep playing until someone won. On the final hole, Woods hit his shot to 12 feet from the hole. His opponent missed his shot. Woods stepped up to his 12-foot putt, knowing this was it, make it and win, miss it and lose. The ball rolled perfectly into the center of the hole. Woods collapsed in celebration, the pain and emotion overwhelming him. He'd won the biggest tournament in the world while playing on a broken leg, a feat that may never be equaled in any sport. 2 days later, Woods announced he needed reconstructive surgery and would be out for months. He'd played and won a major championship on a leg that needed to be rebuilt. Why these stories matter. Here's why millions of people lose their minds over golf, and why these comebacks transcend sports entirely. In most sports, if you're down by a lot, the game is basically over. In basketball, if you're down 20 points with 5 minutes left, you're done. In football, if you're down by 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, start planning your offseason. But in golf, you can be 10 shots behind and still win. You can be 46 years old and still dominate 25-year-olds. You can play on a broken leg and still be the best in the world. These aren't just sports stories. They're human stories about refusing to quit when everyone tells you it's over. They're about finding something inside yourself that you didn't know existed. Tiger Woods playing on a broken leg teaches us that sometimes you have to push through pain to achieve greatness. Jack Nicklaus at 46 shows us that age is just a number. Paul Lawrie's 10-shot comeback proves that it's never too late to change your life. The next time you're facing your own impossible situation, whether it's in sports, work, relationships, or life, remember these champions. Because if a 46-year-old can beat players half his age, if a man can come back from a near-fatal accident, and if someone can win while playing on a broken leg, then maybe your impossible situation isn't so impossible after all. That's why golf matters. That's why these comebacks matter. And that's why millions of people around the world stop everything they're doing to watch these moments unfold. Because in golf, as in life, it's never over until it's over. If you like this video, please subscribe and help us reach the 10,000 mark by the end of this month.